Welcome to Exploring Orthodoxy. Today we're continuing on with our studies on the Rudder. And for those who are new, you can go back to the playlist and find the Rudder playlist and see the introduction that we've done prior, as well as the different readings of canons. To find this document, you would go to Google. This is the full text of the Rudder, and you would type into the search bar Nicodemus the Rudder.pdf. So today we're on page 953 concerning the so-called First and Second Synod Prologue. This is a reading of the document. If you want to have further analysis of these documents, discussions, you're advised to do this with your spiritual fathers. Okay, so the synod is given this title by Zenaris, Balsamon, Blasterus, and others. The great and holy First and Second Synod, which was held in Constantinople in the all-venerable Temple of the Holy Apostles, was assembled in the time of Emperor Michael, the son of Theophilus and of Bardas Caesar, his uncle on his mother's side, in AD 861. It was attended by 318 fathers, among whom the most distinguished were Most Holy Photios, Patriarch of Constantinople, who had been elevated anew to the throne of Constantinople at that time after divine Ignatius had been exiled to Mytilene by force and power of Caesar Bardas and the legates or deputies of Pope Nicholas, namely Rodold of Porto and Zacharias of Anagnio, who were then in Constantinople on a mission against the Iconomachistes. The reason why it is called the First and Second Synod is according to Zenaris, Balsamon, Blasterus, Emilius, in brackets, page 920 of the second volume of the Synodal Records, there was held a first convention of this synod, and after the Orthodox participants engaged in a discussion with the heterodox participants, perhaps these were the remnants that had remained from the Iconomachis, as we have said, and the Orthodox members won and the heterodox were defeated, it was decided to keep a written record of everything that had been asserted in the synod in order that it might remain certain and sure. But the heretics, being discomfited, averse to having these records preserved, lest they be seen to have been defeated and lest in consequence they be expelled from the church and the congregation of the faithful, made such a disturbance and fight, even drawing knives and engaging in murderous assaults, that the first convention was dissolved without any definition and resolved being committed to writing. After such time had passed, a second convention of the same synod, and again there was a discussion of the Orthodox participants with the heretics concerning the same subjects, and at this meeting the dogmas asserted concerning belief were written up. Hence, this synod, having on this account been properly and truly but one, it was styled the first and second because of the circumstance of its having held a first and a second convention. At its second convention, the present 17 canons were promulgated, which are essential to the decorum and regulation of the church, being corroborated and confirmed by the Nomo Canon of Photios, by the interpreters of the canons, and by the whole church. Note, however, that in some manuscript codices, there are 30 canons bearing an inscription in the name of the present synod, but we have interpreted only those recognized by the church and interpreted by the exegetes. As for the others, we have left them out on the ground that the church does not recognize them. The present synod has been assigned by all commentators a place preceding all local synods held previously to this one, either because of its having been a large one and one more numerously attended than were those, or rather because it followed immediately in the wake of Seventh Ecumenical Synod, both in respect of the date and in that it was convoked against the same iconomachyists as those against whom that one was convoked. And in a way, this synod was, in that respect, a continuation or successor of that one. So now we have the beginning of the section on the canons. And what we'll do is go to Canon 15, which is widely referred to even in our present day. So let me scroll down to Canon 15. We're almost there. Okay, so here is Canon 15. The rules laid down with reference to priests and bishops and metropolitans are still more applicable to patriarchs, so that in case any priest or bishop or metropolitan dares to secede or apostatize from the communion of his own patriarch and fails to mention the latter's name in accordance with custom duly fixed and ordained in the divine Mistahoye, but before a synodal verdict has been pronounced and has passed judgment against him, creates a schism. The Holy Synod has decreed that this person shall be held an alien to every priestly function, if only he be convicted of having committed this transgression of the law. Accordingly, these rules have been sealed and ordained as respecting those persons who, under the pretext of charges against their own presidents, stand aloof and create a schism and disrupt the union of the church. But as for those persons, on the other hand, who on account of some heresy condemned by holy synods or fathers, withdrawing themselves from communion with their president, who, that is to say, is preaching the heresy publicly and teaching it bareheaded in church, such persons not only are not subject to any canonical penalty on account of their having walled themselves off from any and all communion with the one called a bishop before any synodal verdict has been rendered, but on the contrary, they shall be deemed worthy to enjoy the honour which befits them among Orthodox Christians, for they have defied not bishops, but pseudo-bishops and pseudo-teachers, and they have not sundered the union of the church with any schism, but on the contrary, have been sedulous to rescue the church from schisms and divisions. There are some readings here that people can find further details. And now let's go to the interpretation. The same rules as were prescribed in the above canons with regard to bishops and metropolitans are prescribed, and so much the more so by the present canon with regard to patriarchs. For it says that if any priest or bishop or metropolitan should separate himself from the joint communion of his own patriarch and does not mention his name in accordance with custom, this applies, that is to say, to only the metropolitan, for a priest mentions only the name of his bishop, and the bishop mentions only the name of his metropolitan, before revealing the charges against their patriarch to the synod, and before learning that he has been condemned by the synod, they, I say, shall all be completely deposed, the bishops and metropolitans from every clerical activity, the priests from every priestly activity. But these provisions are of effect if priests separate from their bishops or bishops separate from their metropolitans, or metropolitans separate from their patriarchs on account of certain criminal charges of fornication, say of sacrilege, and of other serious crimes. If, however, the said presidents are heretics and are preaching their heresy openly, and on this account those subject to them separate themselves, even though it be before there has been any synodal trial concerning the heresy, but are even deemed to deserve fitting honour as Orthodox Christians, since not only have they caused no schism in the Church on account of their separation, but have rather freed the Church from the schism and heresy of their pseudo-bishops. See also Apostolic Canon 31. That is the reading of Canon 15. God bless.